Thanks for watching the Carolina Justice Report. I'm Rainee Romero, and we are here for your next episode all about Lauren Pazienza, who's the 26-year-old who pushed an elderly lady in New York City. We'll be right back. So I'm being joined with attorneys Sarah Austin and Roberto Anton. We're chatting about this horrible, super sad thing that just happened in March, where Lauren Pazienza pushed an elderly 87-year-old, I think she was a singing coach, very well known in Broadway and everything else, who was on her way to actually see a show and was pushed supposedly by someone, Lauren, who had no connection to her. What do you guys know about this? What do you think about it?
I'm not sure her last name, but I know her first name's Barbara.
Yes, Barbara Gustern, I think. Gustern or Gustern. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it.
Right. She's a pretty prominent Broadway coach, and I think she was like right outside of her home, close to her home.
Yeah, in Chelsea.
In Chelsea, and it was crowded streets like New York City streets always are. And allegedly, this Lauren Pazienza pushed her. She fell, ended up suffering a traumatic brain injury, and passed away, which is really sad. I've only really kept up on the criminal side of it, as far as just all that's hitting the news. And she's been charged with manslaughter, I think assault, which is pretty standard. You know, if you were to take this, where we see it often here is like into a bar fight, right? If you punch someone in the face and they suffer a brain injury and they pass away, you're probably going to look at these same charges. So they're charging her with a criminal assault and manslaughter.
Right.
And I think her attorney has now got up and made public statements that it was not a shove, it was an accident. The whole thing is on video. I tried and I dug and I searched, and you cannot find the actual video of the incident, so I'm sure that will come out eventually. But it sounds like there's not a clear push and shove of this woman on video.
It's one of these things that they happen and your mind just doesn't understand how to make sense of it, right? So there's all these like, what ifs? Could that be? No, that doesn't make sense, you know? Like the fact that she doesn't know this woman at all. There's no connection to her. And then you just have this 26-year-old who, you know, I mean, some accounts are saying she had an argument with her, you know, boyfriend or fiance or whoever he was, and was like storming down the road and then just hardly as in very hard, pushed this woman. I mean, you're thinking, well, I don't know, maybe she was just mad, has anger issues and pushed some lady. I don't know.
And I read that about her. I guess her neighbors and stuff are coming out. I know COVID took New York down.
Yeah.
I think mental health wise, they all got to know their neighbors. They live in close quarters. And so now the neighbors are coming out saying, no, she has anger issues. We hear her yelling all the time. Everyone in the complex knows not to mess with her because she just is this angry person
constantly complaining.
Kind of the type of person who would push an old lady down in the street. So when I read that, it kind of changed my views, because at first, you know, the criminal defense attorney in me was like, I need to see this video.
Right.
Is there a push? And then I just start thinking, I'm like, you know, if you accidentally knock over an 80-year-old lady, you don't run across the street and hang out all guilty. You're like, oh my gosh, you helped them up.
Exactly.
You call them help.
You show some remorse.
Yeah, and none of that happened. And I think the Miss Barbara ended up living a few weeks before she passed, and she told her grandson that Lauren said something derogatory to her and then pushed her as hard as she's ever been pushed. Which I know Miss Barbara had a brain injury, but if you didn't assault her and you just knocked her over, you'd think that you would stop and help her. But we are talking about New York City.
Well, and I thought it was something like 4 days that she had died. Was it weeks? Did I get that wrong?
I thought it was days.
I thought it was a couple.
I'm not sure. I could have read that wrong. I thought it was 2 weeks.
You know, it's just terrible. You know, I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. And going back to your point of hanging out after you push somebody, you know, so yeah, I mean, there are these reports that after she pushed her, she like kind of went a block over, watched the ambulance like come and pick her up, and then, you know, then kind of left
Snuck
after
away
that.
on a train and then went to her parents' house.
It's just weird.
Yeah.
I think the important thing to keep in mind here is, regardless of whether she intentionally pushed her or it was just she was barreling down the street without any regard for whether she did or did not push anyone, you have to think this is New York City, and people, you know, they live on top of one another. It has some of the highest, especially in Manhattan, which is where this occurred, it has one of the highest population densities. Like the greatest number of people living, working, and inhabiting a space for every square mile or what have you. So you have to think there's probably thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of incidences every day in which someone in New York City barrels past somebody, pushes them into a wall, onto the floor, maybe even intentionally pushes them. I mean, it happens all the time. And how often does someone actually die or get really hurt? Probably not that often. And so the issue is that it's a reminder for all of us that we need to check our own anger at all times, because this kind of thing can happen also if someone's driving angry. You know, your driving is going to get worse. You're more likely to cause an accident, hurt someone else. It doesn't matter if you're in a car, on a bicycle, you could be riding a horse, you know, driving a car. It doesn't matter. When you are in an altered state of mind, you're agitated, you are going to be more careless. And the fact of the matter is that in this case, regardless of whether she intended to push her or not, I don't think anybody's alleging that she was aiming to kill this woman. And what ends up happening is that some people will say, and I think there's something floating around on the internet that I've seen, that maybe Miss Barbara had a condition that made her more susceptible to a brain injury and therefore from dying from a shove or a knock that for most of us would just be an annoyance. And some people say, well, how could Lauren have possibly known? And the response to that is that there's a doctrine in the law called, funny enough, although a little bit tragically in this case, the eggshell skull doctrine. And what it basically means is that you find your victim, you take your victim as you find them. It means that even if someone has a condition that makes their bones super brittle, easily broken, you could just, give them a little bit of a shove and they break. It does not matter whether 999,000 people out of a million would not have been harmed by what you did. The fact that they were harmed and that you caused it, you own it now. You bought it. You break it, you buy it.
It's interesting.
And I think, maybe a million other people in Manhattan get shoved the way that Lauren shoved Miss Barbara, and nothing happens, and we're not hearing about this. And in this case, it was the worst possible day for Barbara. It's a bad day for Lauren as well, regardless of whether she meant to do this or not.
And maybe this one's more publicized because we're talking about two females too. You know, I mean, you don't really see as often a younger female pushing or, being as violent. Whether it happens as often or not, you don't see it as much. And so I think part of it is the fact that Lauren came from supposedly a good family. They think, oh, I don't understand how this could have happened. She's never been like this. Though we're hearing from friends and stuff that she did have kind of this side to her. So there's kind of this back and forth of who is Lauren, And, one of the things that struck me when I first saw this story was, I don't know if you guys remember a couple of years ago, there was kind of this trend going around that you would just go punch somebody as you were walking by. Did you guys see this?
Yeah,
and it was something that I feel like happened a lot in New York, but it was all these videos were coming up as this trend that younger people were just walking by non-suspecting people and just punching them, and in an effort, I think, to just knock them out, and then they would just keep walking as though nothing happened. And so this almost reminded me of that kind of a situation where I questioned, was she doing that? Was she just trying to do a drive-by violent act and just do whatever? But then there were just too many weird circumstances about it. So I don't know. I'll be interested to see kind of what comes of this and if she ever explains herself with this.
Yeah, I think that opposite of people giving it attention because it was a young woman who did the pushing, I think it got so much attention because Miss Barbara was so old. And you don't hear, you hear of that trend.
Yeah.
They weren't punching 80-year-olds in the face.
Right.
So we just don't treat old people that way.
Yeah.
And then on the criminal side with showing intent, I think that it would be believable that maybe it was a shove or an angry moment, and that Lauren maybe didn't know the damage she caused because she did not know that Miss Barbara had this condition. But the fact that she sort of hung around made me feel like she probably knew that she had caused some damage. She saw people trying to help her, and she wasn't like, oh my gosh, whether it was on purpose or not, are you okay?
Right.
How can I help? This is what happened. She sort of got on the train and ran away. And I'm not sure what those reasons were, but it definitely made me feel like it was more of an intentional act
Yeah.
I guess we'll wait to see the video.
Right.
And then on the civil side, it'll be interesting to see if someone sues Lauren and her family, if she comes from this big, nice family with assets to pay Miss Barbara's family.
It's just bizarre. And yeah, I mean, she pushed her and she laid there. Barbara laid there, and a bicyclist came and helped her back into, her apartment building, where she saw a neighbor, and that the neighbor is the one that she said, I was pushed to the hardest I've ever been pushed in my life. And, and then went to the hospital after that. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Part of me thinks maybe she hung around because she was worried, like, oh crap, what did I just do? Let me see how serious this is. Or maybe it was like some deranged kind of morbid, curiosity of, ooh, let's see how bad this is. I don't know. I don't know, but
it's definitely
either way, it's terrible.
And I saw a bunch of elderly people on the news. I was watching some videos on it, saying that old people just aren't safe in New York City. This is happening all the time. So maybe it's just a lesson to be mindful, And like Roberto said, even when you are in an agitated state, pay attention to what you're doing, because you don't know, if there's an 87-year-old lady that you're going to knock over, and a little kindness goes a long way. Absolutely. I think maybe had Lauren been kind and stopped, then people wouldn't be accusing her of pushing. She may still be liable for killing Miss Barbara, but she might not be facing criminal charges. Yeah.
Well, it definitely churns my stomach when you see it, just because you think of Barbara just standing there minding her own business, getting ready to go do something fine out in town, and just unsuspecting and having this happen, just makes you feel awful.
It's tragic.
Yeah, it just makes you feel awful. And, your point to, elderly people as you get older, to kind of be more mindful of safety and everything, is a weird pill to swallow too, because as we all kind of age through life, you go through this period where you get more older, you get, more mature, you're active, you're out doing whatever the heck you want to do. And then you decline as you get older. And that's a weird thing to wrap your head around, of like, I used to be able to do this and now I can't do this. And so I don't know. I guess that's another topic for another story, but it's just kind of an interesting thing to think about. So what do we think moving forward? What do we kind of want to know as this unfolds?
I want to see the video.
Okay.
In the absence of a video, I think we have to keep in mind is that what the prosecution has to do at this point is, again, we're dealing with the beyond the reasonable doubt standard. And what that basically means is that what the prosecution wants to show is if they're doing manslaughter. So manslaughter 1 would be that you engage in some behavior that you were substantially certain could or would result in someone being harmed, and that you were indifferent to that potential harm. You didn't affirmatively want to hurt them, but you knew someone could get hurt or probably would get hurt while you were doing whatever it was that you were doing, and you didn't do anything to try to curb or make it, curb your own behavior to prevent other people from being harmed. And, the prosecution has to basically convince a jury that Lauren was barreling down the street, or otherwise disregarding the safety of others while she tried to get to wherever it was that she was trying to get to. Certainly, if they were able to demonstrate that she actively wanted to push Miss Barbara down, that would be even worse for her. And these are just these little differences between what someone's state of mind is, that mean all the difference. It can mean the difference between less than a decade in jail or more than a decade. It reminds us that we all in society owe a duty to one another. We all have grandparents. We all have people who are older and who are vulnerable that we care about, and we need to treat all those people the way that we would want others to treat our grandparents.
Right. Yep,
I agree.
Well, thank you both for feedback on this story. Of course, we are going to keep following this with you guys. Let us know if you guys have any questions about this or stuff that you want to know pertaining to it. But of course, we'll keep you updated. Thanks so much for watching the Carolina Justice Report today. Make sure you can go and visit us anywhere that you consume your media: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We are everywhere for you. Thanks so much for watching today. We'll see you next time.
When life gets ugly, justice is lovely. The love